Chapter 1. Mill Hand to Military Man. Just because a soldier comes home in one piece doesn't mean he isn't broken. If you want to get this peaceful old man getting emotional, just mention the Battle of Rapido River, in which the 36th Texas Infantry Division of the United States Army suffered one of its worst defeats in the World War II history. I'm not from Texas, but I'm nonetheless a victim of that monumental blunder by Uncle Sam's Army top brass. I paid for that fiasco for 15 months of my life. I have the scars and my mother's scrapbook to prove it. Like countless other World War II veterans, I returned quietly after the war, nursed my wounds, emaciated my body to health, soothed my soul as best I could, and buried my memories. A member of the supposed greatest generation, I quickly set about, as my mother said, getting back to normal. I got married, raised a family, worked hard, paid my taxes. I've lived a long, satisfying life, and only now, as I approach the age where a man gets ready to meet his maker, can I tell what happened to me in Germany during those God-forsaken months as a prisoner of war. I suppose it would be best to start by introducing myself. My name is Gerard Albert Johnson, the firstborn of Albert and Anna Johnson. I was born in 1924 in New London, a small town in central Wisconsin. Doing the math, that makes me over 80 years old. I had a mild stroke a couple years ago, and it would be very kind of you to keep that in mind if my recollections here in this book aren't perfect. They say inside every old man is a young one wondering what the hell happened, I suppose, but I still find those old does have its perks. I don't have to get up and go to work when it's 20 below zero. I don't have to think up an excuse when I forget something. I can actually look at the scrapbook my mother kept for me from 1943 to 1945, a courageous act of faith, since most of that time she must have considered the likelihood I'd never come back to see it. Like I said before, it's hard to know where to start this story. So I've chose the beginning, my beginning. My family moved shortly after I was born, and I grew up in a farm in Elderon, Wisconsin, a typical small Midwestern farm community during the roaring 20s. I remember that I excelled at being typical. I had a younger brother, Leroy, who pestered whenever I could, my two sisters, Carol and Alice, whom I ignored as much as I could. I attended Ingersoll, once a bustling Milltown community, now a ghost town, grade school, satisfied to get average marks and not get into any serious mischief. As was the custom in the rural agricultural areas back then, my formal education ended when I graduated from 8th grade. Like almost all of my friends, my childhood ended at age 13 when I went to work full-time on my father's dairy farm. Teenage life back then was nothing like it is today. The effects of the Great Depression lingered and times were tough. I had always been one of the tallest and strongest, I like to think, of the kids in my town. So I celebrated my 16th birthday in 1940 by getting a job at Stanley Westcog sawmill near Elderon. I hauled logs 6 days a week for $5 a day, hung out on Saturday nights with my friends, faithfully went to church every Sunday morning, and was shocked, as everyone else was, when Germany invaded Czechoslovakia. When Hitler overran France, the argument over America going to war rose to a fever pitch. And not much for politics, but when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, to put it in 21st century terms, it was my first 9/11. The next day, a shocked nation listened as President Roosevelt informed us that Congress had declared war. You're only 17, too young to be drafted, my mother said with relief as we sat gathered around the radio console. But like most of the young men in America in those days, I was itching to go. Of course, none of us had any idea of what war was actually like, but patriotism fueled by my fear makes a powerful motivator. I did notice that mealtime grace and Sunday church services took a new fervor for my family and friends, especially my mother. She knew lots of women whose sons were old enough and quickly in uniform, gone and not forgotten in our daily thoughts and prayers. One night, it must have been around Christmas time, I was sitting with some guys talking smart with typical teenage ignorance. We started discussing how we would whump the Jerrys and Japs as fast if they wouldn't know what hit them. Someone said his cousin had already shipped out for the Pacific, and he too was determined to join the army on his next birthday, because I like to hunt and camp. Sleeping in an army tent and shooting at Germans and Japs can't be much different. I sometimes wonder what he thought about that when he landed on the beach at Normandy. I wanted to ask him, but he never came back.